Dear Sagittarius, there are handshakes that are just formality, but there are also handshakes that are invitations from heaven, a sacred moment where destiny and light meet at the very second God has appointed. And you, Sagittarius, are standing right at that threshold. Have you felt that someone has been showing up in your thoughts more often than usual lately? Even though you're no longer speaking, no longer in contact, but every time you think of them, it isn't your heart that speaks. It's a sigh from your soul. Because maybe they've begun to realize something that you've known for a very long time, that their feelings for you never truly disappeared. And here's what's more extraordinary. They're not coming back because they want to. They're coming back because a higher power is leading them back to the very place they've always belonged, beside you. If you're watching this, it's not by accident. Stay until the end, because maybe this is the first time you're hearing what God has always been trying to say to you. Comment, I am ready to receive the love God has already reserved for my soul. It's not just a statement. It is a way for you to align with the divine current that's guiding that person back toward you. And if this means something to you, share this message, because light was never meant to be kept. It was born to guide even those souls silently returning in the night. But who is that person, and why, out of millions of souls, are you, Sagittarius, the one God chose to awaken the sleeping heart? Now is the moment to turn inward and gaze upon the light you carry within, a light not meant to please anyone, but to guide hearts that have lost their way. You are not like most people who merely pass through others' lives, because you, Sagittarius, don't knock on doors with your hands, you knock with light. You don't arrive through words. You arrive through presence. And when you enter someone's world, you don't just touch them. You touch the deepest part of them, the part even they were afraid to look at. Some people make others fall in love because they are beautiful, others because they are gentle. But you, Sagittarius, you make it impossible to walk away, because you are the truth they've always tried to avoid. In astrology, you are represented by a symbol no one can mistake, half human, half horse. A mythical fusion, seemingly contradictory, but in truth, it is the key to your soul. The horse, instinct, speed, and untamed wildness. The human, wisdom, intuition, and unwavering faith in truth. And you are the sacred balance of both worlds. You live between the wind blowing freely through your hair and the divine light flowing through your thoughts. And maybe that's why you don't love the way others do. You don't flirt with pretty words, you speak directly. You don't dodge the question. You look someone in the eyes and ask, is this real to you? Sagittarius is the honest flame lit by God to burn away all that is false. You cannot tolerate ambiguity or half-heartedness. For you, love must be true. And if it's not, you walk away. Not because of pride, but because you know a soul cannot grow in the warped mirror of distorted emotions. You are not searching for love. You are seeking truth. Because for you, love is not the outcome. It is the consequence of honesty. And when others look at you, they don't just see a person, they see their own reflection. Am I living truthfully? Am I loving authentically? Or am I clinging to an illusion out of fear of being alone? You don't just stir someone's heart, you force them to confront the dishonesty within their own. That's why you're often misunderstood. Because you don't say what's easy to hear. You don't soften your voice when the truth needs to be spoken. I don't feel sincerity in you. You don't pretend to be okay when your heart is in pain. You are the soul God sends to remind someone love cannot grow on the sands of self-deception. And that is what makes you sacred. Not because you're perfect. Sagittarius can be fiery, blunt, sometimes too honest. But God doesn't need you to be polished. He needs you to burn bright. Because when you burn, you awaken in others a fire they forgot they had inside. You are the arrow, always pointing forward, never looking back, never regretting. And that is what haunts others. They cannot control you. They cannot hold you with manipulation. They cannot tether you with false tears. Because you belong to God long before you ever belonged to anyone else. You were not born to live small, not to be agreeable, not to fit into someone else's version of life. You, Sagittarius, are the one other souls come to learn from. They meet you, and from that moment on, they can no longer live the same. You are unlike anyone. You don't enter someone's life. You awaken it. You speak the frequency of emotion, not of words. So even if you leave, they still hear your voice at night. They hear your silence, like a song with no lyrics. They hear your eyes, as if they were a question left unanswered. And if today, that person comes back, stands before you, just to say, I can't live a lie anymore, then it's not because you're cool or because you're different. It's because you are the only soul that ever made them want to live in truth. So if you've ever asked yourself, what is my worth? Am I truly loved? Do I need to change to be accepted? Remember this, people don't leave because you are too much. They leave because they weren't true enough to stay with your light. And maybe now they are, mature enough to love you, not with words, but with action. Not with impulsive feelings, but with a heart that has learned its lesson from the very absence of you. Because light does not chase anyone, light stays still and shines. And when someone is truly ready, they return. Not to ask, but to thank. And if you are truly the light, you don't need to seek anyone. Because light doesn't search, it simply exists. And those lost in the dark will pray to find their way back to it. Now listen closely, because maybe, right now, someone is whispering your name in their night prayers, not to bring you back, but to ask God to guide them down the path they once walked away from. Not everyone who leaves truly wants to forget, and not everyone who goes silent has stopped feeling. Some connections, after they break, don't vanish. They quietly become a current beneath someone's thoughts. You don't call their name anymore, but somewhere a soul is starting to whisper yours in the quietest hours, not to beg, but to pray. Not with words, but with a regret too deep for language. With a glance that falls whenever someone brings up your name. With a kind of longing that has no explanation, but this time carries no bitterness, only a strange peace. And maybe you feel it too. No messages, no calls, just a quiet afternoon when an old song plays and suddenly you smile. No more resentment, no more asking why. Just a sense of release, as if something within you has finally let go. And maybe it wasn't you who let go. Maybe it was someone once clinging to guilt, now silently asking God to return to you the peace they once shattered. Have you felt something returning lately? Not sudden, not urgent, just a warm breeze passing by, reminding you of something once deeply sacred. In astrology, when Mercury retrogrades in the 12th house, the house of spiritual secrets where memory and soul speak without words, that is when sleeping souls begin to awaken. Not with logic, but with a stirring they cannot name. And sometimes with a dream they don't understand why you were in. Not as love, not as desire, but something purer. A whisper in the dark, I hurt them, but now I only want them to be happy. And God hears that. Not everyone who returns is a test. Some come back because they've learned how to pray from the heart. Not to ask for your forgiveness, but to witness your happiness, even if they're no longer part of your path. When a prayer begins from a place of surrender, without agenda, without expectation, that is the moment a soul begins to grow. And even if you don't know it consciously, you feel it. Because your heart, Sagittarius, was created by God to sense the truth, even when it's not spoken aloud. You don't need to believe in the supernatural to know that a connection is being revived. Not loudly, not desperately, just a quiet stream of light gently making its way toward you. You don't know when it will arrive. You don't see anyone coming close, but you feel it. Something is quietly opening, and this time, there is no darkness. No miracle begins with thunder. It begins with a shift of heart. With nights when someone kneels and speaks not to you, but to God. Please bring me back to the light I once refused. Maybe you are that light, and maybe this isn't their second chance. Maybe it's the first time they've arrived with a heart that has learned how to pray. And when they finally stand before you, they won't need to say much. They'll simply extend a hand, and their eyes will say what their mouth never had the courage to. You don't have to forgive, you don't have to start over, but you will understand. Some handshakes aren't meant to reconnect, but to bring closure, sacredly. Some meetings don't come to begin a new chapter. They come to gently close an old one. And sometimes the most sacred thing is not an apology. It's a handshake. One offered with truth, no explanation, no justification. Just a light touch, but one that carries the weight of the entire universe as witness. You once wished they could understand you, but back then, they couldn't. They were still afraid. Still trying to love the way the world taught them, not the way God had written it into their heart. And now, if they return, not to be held, but to simply reach out to touch a single moment of forgiveness, then this is no longer a human gesture. It is a sacred ritual. No light is born from guilt. Light only emerges when two souls dare to look at the truth and say, I didn't know how to love you. And I'm sorry, not to begin again, but so you no longer have to carry that pain alone. You don't forgive to keep someone. You forgive to set yourself free. You've carried too many feelings unspoken, swallowed too many wounds because you thought that being strong meant being silent. But strength is not silence. Strength is looking into the eyes of the one who broke you and being able to say, thank you, because I learned how to heal, even when no one apologized. That handshake, if it comes, won't be to hold on. It will be to release with peace. In the Bible, Jacob and Esau met again after years of hatred. They didn't start over. They didn't explain the past. They just embraced in tears because God had changed their hearts from war to reconciliation. And you, Sagittarius, are the same. You don't need someone to understand you right now. You only need to know God is working in the hearts of both of you, silently, patiently, but powerfully. They may not stay. Things may never return to what they once were, but you'll feel something you never expected. I no longer hold resentment. And that is the most sacred gift for both souls, because true love doesn't always mean holding on. Sometimes it is fulfilled with nothing more than a handshake. And from that moment on, the real light begins. You thought everything had just been closed, that forgiveness was the final act. That after that handshake, each of you would quietly walk your own separate paths, peacefully, without burden. But sometimes God doesn't close a chapter. He silently turns the page and begins to write again. And what surprises you most is not that they came back, but the way they came back, with a purpose entirely different. You might think a return is just a cycle repeating itself, a test to see if you've grown strong enough, a trial sent by the universe asking, can you forgive so easily? Can you trust again the one who once broke you? But this time, something feels profoundly different. There is no rush, no reckless promises, only a quiet presence, a return, carrying the stillness of someone who has prayed many nights before taking one step toward you. Not every return is a loop. Some come back because they are part of your spiritual mission. Not someone to love, but someone whose soul made a vow with yours long before human memory began. Once, they weren't mature enough to love you the way God intended. They loved by instinct, not understanding. They came to you by impulse, not knowing why they were so drawn, and left, equally confused and afraid. They didn't know that the light within you wasn't from your outer form, but from something God placed in your soul, a sacred gate that only those who have truly fallen can even begin to see. And now, they are not here to possess you. They no longer call your name to ease their own loneliness. They call your name in prayer. Lord, if I could do it over again, please lead me back to that person. When someone closes their eyes and whispers those words, they are no longer in the territory of the ego. They have entered sacred ground where only God decides if such a return is meant to be. And if you see them come back, with eyes no longer proud, with steps slower, with a voice that no longer hides, know this: God has heard their prayer, and it is He who is guiding them back to you, not to resume a relationship, but to complete a divine destiny. Not everyone is given that chance. Not every soul is permitted to return to a light they once rejected. So if this is happening to you, know that this is not romance, this is sacred. And love, when it crosses into sacred ground, ceases to be a feeling. It becomes a calling. You don't have to decide right away. You don't have to open your heart fully. But you need to know this. This return did not come from human will. It came from a silent agreement between two souls and the Creator. This is no longer the old story. No longer a question of can we love each other again, but rather, can we heal together now? Can we fulfill the part of our soul's vow that remains? Can we walk forward without needing a reason, under God's light alone? Because within this return lies something even greater than love. A summoning, a divine assignment, a chance for both souls to be brought back to the exact place they were born to stand together. Not everyone is given that chance. Not every soul is allowed to return to the light they once rejected. So if this is happening to you, know that this is not romantic, it is sacred. And love, when it enters sacred territory, ceases to be a feeling. It becomes a mission. You don't have to decide right away. You don't have to open your heart completely. But there is one thing you need to know. This return didn't come from human desire. It came from a silent agreement between two souls and the Creator. This is no longer the old story, no longer the question, can we love each other again? But instead, can we heal together? Can we fulfill the missing part of a soul promise left undone? Can we walk forward without needing a reason? Under the light of God alone. Because within this return lies something far greater than love. A summoning, a divine assignment, a rare chance for both souls to be brought back to the very place they were born to stand together. Some people enter your life not to stay, but to return. Because the first time they left, they didn't understand enough. The second time, they lacked the humility. Only when their soul begins to awaken do they realize, you are not a memory. You are a guiding flame. And they are the ones who got lost in the darkness of their own making. Have you ever wondered why out of all 12 signs of the zodiac, Sagittarius is the only one granted a bow? Not to fight, not to destroy, but to point the way. Because you, Sagittarius, are not here to chase love. You are here to seek truth. And anyone who has strayed from themselves when they meet you will be forced to face it. Not through argument, but through your eyes. Eyes that cannot tolerate what's false. Through your words, blunt truths that make others pause and look within. Through your energy that makes them want to run, yet never able to leave. In astrology, when the North Node, the point of destiny, moves near Sagittarius, it isn't just a phase, it is a calling of the soul. The ones who once turned away from you will begin to dream of you. Not because they want to come back, but because the truest part of them has started to awaken. God doesn't need you to remind them of anything. He only needs you to be there, to hold your light. Not to retaliate, not to hide, not to be hardened, but not to be soft either. Just to be present, as living proof that forgiveness is real. You no longer need them. You've outgrown the pain. You are whole within yourself. But maybe God needs you, not to keep them, but to open a corridor of light where both souls, whether they walk together or not, can move forward in freedom. No longer burdened by the debts of the past. Are you ready? Ready to extend your hand? Not to hold, but to bear witness to healing. Ready to be the one who reopens a connection, not to start over, but to complete an unfinished divine assignment. Ready to forgive, not because you are weak, but because you know God is using you as a vessel for light. Before we end, remember this: not everyone carries the mission you do. The mission of Sagittarius is not to stay in everyone's life. It is to awaken the truest part of them and then let them choose their own path. And sometimes, when they've grown enough to return, the light you once carried is the only thing they still remember in the dark. You don't need to shout, you don't need to weep, just hold your direction. Because a true flame never chases anyone, it simply stays and shines. And when the lost ones begin to pray, they will see you. Maybe they didn't choose you. They chose safety. They chose what was easy. They chose something less challenging than true love. But God didn't. God didn't choose you because you fit someone. He chose you because the light within you was meant to be sent into a world that has lost its way. And sometimes that light must pass through many wounds before it becomes the very thing that saves the one who once hurt you. You don't need a handshake from man when God has been holding your soul long before you even knew what love was. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need anyone to affirm your worth. Because since the moment you were born, your name has been written into a story far greater than romance. The story of soul healing. And if that person returns, says nothing, only looks at you with eyes full of remorse, with a trembling hand reaching out, not to pull you back, but to ask for one chance to redeem what was lost. Understand, this is no longer about a relationship. This is a miracle. And you, yes, you, are the one God is using to close a chapter of pain. Not with tears, but with light. You didn't fall because you were strong. You didn't fall because you were chosen to carry light, and true light never has to chase anyone. It only needs to remain so the one who needs it can find their way back. And true light is never alone. If you feel this is happening in your very heart, if you believe God is rewriting your love story, leave a comment below. I am the one God is guiding toward true love. Because when you write that, you're not just speaking to me, you are speaking to God. And that kind of truth, once spoken, will never be lost in the universe. If this touched you, share this message so the healing light can spread. Because true love always begins with a handshake arranged by God Himself.